Welcome to Switch Your Sitch with your host, Katie Turner. Super excited today to have another guest from the other side of the world, the Northern Hemisphere. Different timing. It's not so bad as the UK, though. There, I think it completely screws the time difference up over there. It's either 8 o'clock at night podcasting or 6 o'clock in the morning. So Robert Riopel, I know we screw up everything, hails from us from Canada, so not America. I'm very clear on dividing those two between Canada and North America. Robert's an author. He's a coach. He has just shown me he's working on his second book, and he has book number 1 already published and out there since 2017. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Robert. Roberts, how do you prefer to be?
Well, you know what? For my branding, I go by Robert Raymond Riopel, but for friends, it's Robert or Rob. So take your pick, Katie. I know we're going to be friends because you look like you have the same kind of sense of humor and zest for life that I do. So
sarcasm. No.
Yeah, none of that. Never any of that, right?
Well, I'm going to call you Rob, so I'm going to hand it over to you. Can you give our listeners your journey thus far in a condensed version?
Yeah, condensed version. It began when I was born. Oh, okay. Sorry. And the end. No, growing up here in Alberta, in Canada, grew up in a very, here's the box. Don't question the box. Don't just do what you're supposed to do. And especially when I was being taught about business or work, don't think of being in business because we are a poor family. You just go and you find a job that's going to give you security. And if it gives you security, even if you don't like it, you do it to support your family. By the time I'm 21, I've been laid off from 3 different major jobs. And I'm starting to think it's me, Katie. I'm like, why is it that every time I get hired on, the company closes down? I started getting a complex. And at the time, I was, a newlywed, and our economy was in the tank. Our oil prices were down, and Alberta relies a lot on oil. And I couldn't find a real job per se. So I started delivering pizzas to take care of my family. And I started making more money delivering pizzas than I was doing in my real job. And I was doing that for a while when I had the chance to become a manager. My wife became my assistant manager. We started working open to close 7 days a week because we know how to work hard. And we were doing that for about a year and a half when all of a sudden the fear came back in because my franchisee came to us and said, I'm getting out of Domino's Pizza. I'm selling my 2 stores. And, in my mindset was we knew because we'd watched a few stores get sold, the managers were instantly replaced. And now my fear was now both my wife and myself were losing our entire income. And my solution was, let's talk to other franchisees. And my wife's like, why would we do that? We're qualified to be franchisees. Why don't we just buy this store? And I looked at her, I'm like, because we don't have any money. That's why we don't buy the store. It's kind of funny how you need that, right, Kitty?
Yeah, exactly. You can't buy a store with pizzas.
Well, exactly. But you know what? Not knowing, one of the good things and a blessing in my life, my wife, who is the youngest of 5 children, raised by a single mother, her whole life was, what box? There is no box. Figure it out. So we started investigating and learning. How do you buy a business if you don't have money? And we made a lot of mistakes, Katie, a lot of mistakes. But we learned something every single time. And after about 4 months, we now knew what to say and what not to say when talking to a possible investor or a loan officer. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, we ended up getting 100% financing for not just the store we were working in, but actually for both the stores my franchisee had for sale. And we became franchisees. And it was like,
the heavens did open, you did pray.
Right? Yeah, because it's like we are now successful. But one of the things we learned very quickly, there's a big difference between running a pizza store and running a business. Mm-hmm. And man, for the first 2 years, the only reason we made it is we were too tenacious to quit. And even after 2 years, when our accountants finally caught up on our paperwork, because we didn't think we could afford an accountant. We'll do it on our own. Hey, we're already working 70, 80 or more hours a week in the store, but we can do the accounting too. And they looked at when they got the paperwork caught up, they're looking at us going, how did you guys survive? How did you make it these last 2 years? Our simple rule was, hey, if there's money in the bank, we must be doing okay. Yeah. And that was kind of how we judged. Now that we knew the numbers and now we knew how to keep score, we started doing a lot better because we had learned how do you run a business. We were 23 when we bought the first franchise. And so all of a sudden we started making pretty good money. But because coming from poor families in our upbringing, we wanted to keep up with the Jones, and we started spending more money than we were earning. Mm-hmm. And by the time we were franchisees for 8 years, we're now over $150,000 in personal debt and going down quickly. And Katie, I haven't experienced stress quite like financial stress before. It affects all areas of your life: your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, your physical. It impacts all. And out of necessity, we ended up getting introduced to personal development. We went to a 3-day training that taught us why we were in debt. More importantly, it taught us to take responsibility. Quit blaming other people for our debt. Mm-hmm. And then we learned some practical skills to do and steps that we could do to get out of debt. And taking and putting those into practice, we were able to go from being over $150,000 in debt to actually retired, completely financially free 9 months later at the age of 32.
Wow. That's 9 months from $150,000 debt to completely retired and at the age of 32. What were some of those key points that did turn that debt into zero?
Well, first of all, it was simplifying our life. We realized we had so much debt because we had all the toys. Mm-hmm. You know, one of our stores was in a resort area with a lake, so we had to have a boat. Because if you live on a lake, you got to have a boat. But the problem was our busy season was boating season. So our boat sat pretty in our driveway, never got used because we were in the store. But hey, we had a boat with all the expenses. Yeah. So we ended up just taking a hard look. What don't we need right now? Sure, we may want it, but what don't we need? And we dramatically and drastically cut our expenses down. And at the same time, we had never known about something called passive income, money working for us instead of us having to work for it. And to us, it was something totally foreign. Our parents never had that. They never knew what it was, so we didn't know what it was. And when we learned what it was and we started looking for different passive incomes, all of a sudden we were able to find a couple and get a couple going. And all of a sudden it created our financial freedom for us, which is, you know, what really made the difference in our life. And our minds went, wow, if that little bit of information gave us this result, what would more information do? And that's when my wife and I both became avid students. We started learning from as many masters as we could, because I'm a big believer. Don't just learn one way. Don't just learn from one person. And while we were learning, I also found my passion, which was to teach. Because here's how my dream started, and I want your listeners to get this, Katie, is that it didn't start with, I want to travel the world, I want to write books, I want to impact lives. It started with, if I could help even one person do what my wife and I had done, go from financial stress to financial freedom, it'd make it all worthwhile. And now over the last 20 years, I've been blessed to travel around the world several times and personally train over 500,000 students in 3 to 5 day live trainings with anywhere from 100 to 6,000 students at a time.
Wow.
So that's the condensed version.
Yeah, very condensed, but so powerful, because I think that I come from a mother with a single mother, sister, no fatherly input for 30 odd years. And without having birthday presents and Christmas, that was it. You know, I'm lucky enough now. I look at my daughter and I think, oh my gosh, like I had 2 presents a year. So when you do start to see those dollars coming and think, I can afford the boat, I can afford all of these things that you felt a little bit deprived of per se.
Yes.
But then you almost get to a self-actualization level with money where you think, there's a point where I just don't need anything more. Like I am at a point where, you know, the only thing that really is going to make me happy with money is experiences now. It's spending time with friends, family. You know, I like to do it next to the beach, but it doesn't have to be, you know, a $20,000 holiday to enjoy.
That's right. You know, and I love that you are right away, you're actually touching into what I call my 4 currencies. Because that is what I've come to learn, is exactly what you just said, how powerful it is. Because look, there's no amount of income you can't outspend if you really want to. But everybody has a different level. You know, what I find gives me a great lifestyle, someone else may go, ooh, that's you live on that and you only do that because they want a higher lifestyle. And other people, for the same amount, they go, oh my God, I wish, right? And so it's all perspective.
And do you think that you have to hit rock bottom, like, to be able to dramatically make change?
No. But I will tell you, for a lot of people, that's kind of what gives them the catalyst. Because A lot of people get comfortable and get lazy, and it's that rock bottom that kind of kicks them in the butt. And that's what happened for my wife and I. Here's a statistic for North America. Only 3% of people in North America will actually utilize information that they've learned or been given. And so leaving that 3-day training, probably the only reason, because looking back at who I was back then, probably the only reason my wife and I took action and did something is because we knew we could not handle this stress anymore. We knew we needed something different. So it was like, we'll do whatever it takes. But if we had come into that training in a comfortable position, we would have went, oh, that was a great training. We don't need to do anything else. We're good. Yes. Right? And so it's all, again, where you are. And a lot of people that go, well, Robert, I'm afraid of failure. That's why I don't do anything. But to me, what I've learned over the years, there's no such thing as failure. Some of our greatest lessons do come from what did not work. Yeah. So I look at it as this is feedback. It's only failure when you quit, when you give up. But if you get the feedback, and I look at that as an example, when we didn't know what we know today, but when we were looking to buy the stores, we were making so many mistakes, but yet we had it in us to go, okay, what didn't work? And we learned as an example, we'd be talking to an investor, a possible investor or a bank, and we'd say, yeah, we're buying the business. And all of a sudden they'd be like, red flag, nope. Because they don't want you buying a business because it comes with all the debt and any liabilities. So when we learn to say we're buying the assets and starting our own company that will buy the assets, now the bank's going, oh, okay, I'll pay attention. Yeah. And so it's little adjustments like that.
I think that's a great, you could talking about passive income as well. And there is a big difference between a business owner and somebody who has basically created their own income, right? Yes. And I think that's huge, because I also lecture in my background is actually economics. Part of that came because of my parents were, you've got to go to university, you've got to get the safe job, the 4 weeks a year holiday pay. And I did it for 18 months and hated every single minute of it. And now 23 years later, they still ask me when I'm going back to my real job. And
right?
Yeah, it's just generational, right? And I'm actually hoping that my daughter, both my husband and I, own our own businesses. And I'm hoping that she'll look to that as a passive income or a safe haven as opposed to working for somebody else. Because as we've seen over COVID, at that point, anybody can say, sorry, your income's gone. You had it obviously 3 times before you even started with a franchise.
Yeah. And, it's again, you talk about perspective. Back when my wife and I were franchisees, the average Domino's pizza was about $250,000 to buy or build one. And because we didn't know any better, we were buying ourselves a $60,000 a year job, and so it's like, that was the payoff. But now I look back and I have a couple amazing students from Australia and brother and sister that are now franchisees with Domino's. And years ago when I was putting them through some of the courses and they heard my story about Domino's Pizza, their mom had come up and said, you've got to meet my daughter. You got to meet my son. My daughter's just becoming a franchisee. She started with corporate in Australia for when she was 14, worked her way up in the stores being a customer service rep. And that's how, 95% of franchisees start in Domino's. You can't buy a franchise. You have to earn the right to be qualified. And so she had worked her way up. And when I got to meet them a few months later, and all of a sudden her and her brother were now, they had 2 stores. They were about to buy their 3rd. And we started comparing notes. See, my store, the most we ever did in 1 year, our big year was about $550,000. And our best profit margin was 12%. So not a lot of money, especially for the hours we were both putting in. Yeah. And here these 2 young people, because they'd learned to do it right, they had great mentors. Their slowest store was doing over $1 million a year.
Wow.
And their profit margins at that level are about 20% per store. And I'm like, world of differences, and good on you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's also because there is more availability of information. There are more mentors out there who are able to step away from being operational and now can pass on that education and that mentoring process. I think is a huge
when I was a driver and I knew I wanted to become a manager, and because my franchisee had the one store that was doing extremely well, and he decided to sell it and get 2 stores in a city an hour and a half away. And I wanted something more permanent. That's how it became from driver to manager. And I talked to him for a couple hours, and because of my work ethic, he said, okay, you'll start in 2 weeks when we move to take over the stores. And I asked him this question. I said, since I'm going to become a manager, I've only been driving. Can I get some experience in store? And his answer to me was, oh, you'll get plenty of time to practice when you get there. That was his mentorship. So that's how I had learned in Domino's. And then once I started managing him, my wife became my assistant. He was always at the other store. We never saw him. So I never learned the business side of things, which is a big difference again. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very much that old school mentality of, I remember when I did have jobs part-time, whatever, it'd throw you in and you learn on the job. There's no mentoring, there's no systems. It's sink or swim.
Yep.
One of our biggest entrepreneurial coaches or mentors out here in Australia is Mark Boris, and I don't know if you've heard of him, Yellow Brick Road. And one of his biggest thing in Australia now, currently, your average medium house price is about anywhere between $700,000 and $1 million. So, and with an average income of maybe $70,000 per year, like that's a huge dream almost it is becoming here in Australia to own your own property. And he's now said, rather than investing in property, you should invest in business because there's a greater return. What's your takes on that?
Absolutely, as long as you systemize it. Because most people become the clog in that wheel instead of just being a cog in it, right? And because they think they have to do it all. So when I start a business nowadays, my whole mindset is, my goal is to be selling this business within 5 years. I'm going to start it or buy it to sell it, because you can make great money running a business, but you can make even more selling successful businesses. And with that mindset, it makes me automatically go into systemizing mode. How do I make sure I'm not a necessity in that business for it to run? How do I make sure that it's cookie cutter, that I can sit there and basically put someone in and the system's in place that they can be successful? And there's companies out there that will pay millions and billions of dollars for businesses that are profitable and systemized. And so that's kind of the mindset I go into now. So absolutely invest in business, because then it becomes passive. It's like, think of having a room in your house, Katie. I know I'd love this, where you walk in and it's all these money-making machines on shelves just going cha-ching, 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 spitting money out at you. Who wouldn't love that?
Thank you. And not having to put any money into it. That'd be even better. And it does exist. I'm with you with that. I'm actually about to launch a product in January. It's to do with keeping kids safe from burns. Over here, we did a thermo imaging in a car, and the buckle from it's still under an NDA, but the buckle from the car seats gets up to about 90 degrees Celsius on a 30-degree day. So, we looked at that, and this product that we're launching is to ensure that kids are kept safe and they don't get burns on their skin from those buckles. It's called buckle.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have a wonderful team behind me, but it has been systemizing processes from get-go, because that's exactly as you say, it is having an exit strategy or a sales strategy.
That's right.
Before.
Yeah. And you said something else very, very critical. You have a team behind you. Most people are the lone wolves. I'll do it on my own. No one can do it as well as I can. And look, I've gone through that. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah. Collaboration is always better than competition, I say. I'm much better off collaborating with others than competing against them, because
That's right. Yep. I'm about to fly down to Florida next month, and I was just texting with a friend and former student of mine and saying, do you want to join me in Florida? Because we're going to be talking about the business that we want to do here in Canada starting next year. And, because, an amazing opportunity was brought to me by a friend. And I could have sat there and went, I'll do it on my own. But my first immediate thought is, who can I do this with? So that we all benefit. And that's the way my mind just naturally works. But I'll tell you that's way different from how it used to be, because I was taught that you figure it out on your own.
Yes.
Don't try and, because it was that competition. Now it's like, no, there's enough for, if we can start a successful business, there's enough for all of us. And then that allows me to have the space to have several businesses. Those nice little money-making machines.
That's right. Passive income and I'm a big believer in don't putting it in one pie, because I know that if property or, we have investment property, we have business, three different businesses between us, and at least I never want to have to go and work for somebody else. That's my main goal ever again. 23
right?
years. I've actually been told by the ex-CEO of Bridge Climb over here in Australia that I'm unemployable.
Well, and that's actually what I tell people. They go, "Oh, have you ever thought of coming and work for me?" And I'm like, "I'm unemployable."
I love that.
And what, again, you're hitting, you and I are so in line on this, because think about this. BC, before COVID, I was flying on average 200,000 miles a year around the world doing live trainings. And then all of a sudden, March 10th of 2020, I'm landing back in Canada from doing a 3-day training in India. And March 11th, I get put into isolation because I was in another country, and my world changed. All of a sudden, all my live events are being canceled around the world. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue are gone. And if that was my only business, I would have been in a lot of trouble. And did we have any control over it? Could I sit there and play the victim? It's not our fault. Absolutely. Or I could use two very powerful words that my wife and I use all the time. What's next? And, for us, we're blessed. We have a beautiful acreage that we bought 3 years ago with the intent, eventually 5, 6, 7 years down the road, we'd build a training center on it so that I didn't have to fly as much. Well, when we said, what's next? My wife and I are having a conversation. Goes, you're home now. Why don't we build it now? Now, of course, the fear comes in. Well, hundreds of thousands of revenue are gone. We don't know how long it's going to last. This is going to cost a lot of money to build. But then there's two more other words that we use. And that was when we made the decision, all in. And it took a year, but I'm now moved into and starting to move into my office. And on the other side of the wall beside me is a 1,500 square foot training center that we're still in our medical emergency lockdown, 4th round of lockdowns in Alberta. So I can't have live events here. So what's next? In the next 2 weeks, I'm building a super Zoom training room where it's going to be 3 or 4 camera angles. I can see 400 to 500 students at a time on the screens. I can be on a stage and not have to be standing right in front of the computer to do it. And I'm going to, I'll use it the most, but then I'll also rent it out because there's a lot of people that would love to have access to a room like that to do their live trainings. And it's like, well, we've created it.
I love that because it's seeing the opportunity in any situation. I mean, I don't know about you, but whenever somebody comes with a problem, I'm like, oh, what if you could do this with it? Oh, you could build a business around that. And I'm like, my husband's like, stop it. And I'm like, I know, one thing at a time, but it is always seeing the opportunity in any situation. It's very important. And that virtual world, like you say, the what's next, the all in. I owned a podcasting studio. And again, COVID hit. I co-founded it with my business partner at the time. We came off radio. We opened it was like a self-serving podcasting studio. COVID screwed it all. We could have again lost everything. Commercial rent we were tied to for another 8 months post lockdown. And but we were both lucky enough to have diversified our income streams. So now,
and that's a big key.
Making it home.
Yep, there's a big key. And a lot of people, they don't realize they see one income stream and they think that's and heaven forbid something never happens, it can wipe you out. And so that's part of protecting yourself. And again, that's why you want to make sure you do systemize. You want to make sure that you remove yourself as quickly as possible from being the one having to operate it. It doesn't mean ignore the business. Hey, I still check in on all my businesses. I'm still having meetings. I'm still making sure that they're being run properly because I've got to take responsibility that if they start going downhill, it's not whoever's running its fault. I'm the one that put them in charge, or I'm the one that helped make that decision. So I take ownership and responsibility for that as well. Just like my money, just like my investments, like all areas, like my happiness. I can sit there and be a miserable SOB, or I can choose to be a happy person. And life's too short not to have fun.
That's 100%. I say it's to be enjoyed, not endured, is one of my biggest, especially coming from a fitness background. People beat themselves up every Monday for having a few glasses of wine, and that's one line I use with them. Like, unless you want to be a miserable son of a bitch and eat chicken and broccoli for the rest of your life. Oh my goodness. Life is to be enjoyed, not endured. So as long as you're doing exercise.
Are we related here, Katie? I'm wondering if we've got to be.
It could be distant relatives. Well, my grandparents was either given the choice of Canada or Australia when they were 10-pound poms. So there you go.
Well, and we are both Commonwealth countries, right?
That's right. Exactly. There are very similarities between the Canadians and Australians.
You're getting into your summer right now, and I'm envious because today it was -10 when I woke up this morning, so we're coming into our winter now.
Yeah, I'm not good with the cold, so I am glad they came to Australia on that note. So tell us about your 4 currencies of life, because I want to really deep dive into this and hear your take on what these are.
Yeah, and the first currency is one that everybody thinks of, which is a currency of money. And in my research, what I've realized is that there's a level that everybody has. You're kind of what happens at the top and what kind of happens at the bottom. Too much money in your life is something called affluenza. And when you have affluenza, you're doing stupid things with your money. You're not doing your due diligence on investments, and you're wondering why you're losing, why they're crashing. And the example I probably use the most of affluenza is a prince somewhere over in UAE. He decided he wanted to buy a plane, and this is when the A380s, the double-decker planes, were coming out. He wanted his own A380, and he spent $1 billion to buy one. He spent another $100 million renovating it into his personal party plane. I can think of a lot of other things to do with $1.1 billion.
Me too. Buy country.
Yeah. So when you have too much money, you have affluenza, and you start doing silly things. Too little money is called poverty. And so everybody's levels, because when you're in between, that's when your life will flow, where you'll find it's less stress, you're enjoying life, and everybody's level's different. And as you go through life, your levels will change. So as an example, when I was a Domino's Pizza franchisee, my poverty level was about 40,000. Anytime we got near that, I got stressed out about how are we going to pay bills? Oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And my affluenza level was about 100,000. If we got near 100,000 or made over it, we started doing the stupid investments and not, oh, that sounds good. Yeah, you need money. Oh, here you go, right?
Yeah.
Now today, because I like my lifestyle and I know a lot more, my poverty level is about 200,000, and my affluenza level is about $1 million a year. Yeah. And so that's my zone that I'm in, because with my knowledge, what I understand. That's where I'm so I have friends that are like, oh no, I have one of my former students. She just hit $20 million this year for her revenue for her company. And 6 years ago, she was living in her vehicle with nothing. And for her, the more she can make and do, the happier she is. But for me, I like my time off.
Yes.
I like to relax. So
is she under 30? Because I think that's probably a high correlation with your energy levels too.
Well, she's actually just over, and I love the saying that it's a universal principle. You will be paid in direct proportion to the value you give, and she gives so much value. She absolutely deserves the revenue she's making. And one of her coaching packages, her top end one to work with her personally, $250,000 for the year, and there's people lined up because of the value she gives.
Yeah.
And that was a journey to get herself there. So, yeah. So that's the currency of experience.
Do you find...
of money.
Of money. Do you find people, when they come to you, have a negative relationship with money? Because
all the time.
Yeah. That money is the root of evil. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it because I love it. Like, I hear that a lot, especially from people who pursue a passion as a job and they feel like, oh, well, I don't really need to make money out of it. It's something I just need to love it. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's right. No,
money
you can have both.
Opportunity.
That's right.
That's right.
And that's why my passion is helping people find what they love, what they enjoy, what they're passionate about, and learn how to make money doing it. Because you're going to work hard anyway, so you might as well really enjoy. Because success does take work. People think success is hard, and it is. But most people are working harder, staying broke and miserable. So you're already working hard. Why not have the benefits of what success can bring?
I love that. Because I also have another saying that I say, either think big or think small, because it requires the same amount of energy. So you may as well think big.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's actually, the first step in my book, Success Left a Clue, is dream big. Dream big. So the second currency is the one we all have the exact same amount of, which is a currency of time. And too much time on your hand, boredom. Too little time, stress.
Yes.
And so again, this is where a lot of people, what I hear from them, they're like, Robert, I would love to be able to do this other stuff, but you don't know my life. I am so busy. I can't take something else on. And what I've discovered, and you've probably seen this too, Katie, a lot, is people are really good at being busy.
Yes.
But they're not necessarily productive. And there's a huge difference between the two. So, for me on my calendar, I schedule in what's called focus time. And my focus time, because I could sit there and go, okay, I'm writing my new book, The Authority Key, and I'm going to go to my office, I'm going to write. 8 hours later, I'm like, wow, was I ever busy? But if I look back, I'm like, doesn't seem like I got a lot done on that book. What the heck was I doing? And if I look at it, I'm like, oh, I was on social media. I was responding to instant messages. I was doing emails. I was doing texting. See, I was being busy. Mm-hmm. So research has shown that you can only really truly stay focused on something without your mind wandering for about an hour. So I'll sit there and I'll say, okay, 10 to 11, writing book. And now when I come in, no other distractions. And I'm there for one sole purpose, to be writing. Yeah. And in an hour of being productive, it's equal to about 6 hours in my life of being busy, which means when people learn how to become productive, they'll free up a whole lot of time in their life.
So in that note, I listened to a podcast the other day about the whole 9 to 5, because I've struggled with that, because I'm a very early morning person. Firstly, I'm up at 4:15. My most productive hours are generally, if I train in the morning and come back, is between 8 and 10 mainly. And it's pretty much all downhill from there in terms of productivity. Yes, I'll be busy. I'll be responding to emails or social media, but most productive. So this whole notion of 9 to 5 workplace, do you think that's going to go out the door in the next decade?
Is there really such a thing anymore? I haven't been 9 to 5 my 9 to 5 when I was a Domino's Pizza franchisee was 4 p.m. to midnight, or 4 p.m. to 1, or 4 p.m. to 3. And I'd get home at 3 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't go right to bed. I'm wound up. So my 9 to 5 was different hours. Mm-hmm. And yes, the world was, my wife happens to be diabetic. And when she was first diagnosed 33 years ago, they're like, you have to be up at this time, eat at this time, do this. And we're like, we can't. We're running stores.
That's right.
We can't. But doctors, they're like, no, you must do it this way. And we had to figure it out on our own what our 9 to 5 was.
Yes.
And we're able to regulate her by putting it to our hours. But of course, the mindset was so stuck on, no, this is how it's done. You have to give up your life because of your diagnosis.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah, I love that. Totally. Exactly. And I think companies who will still enforce, especially post-COVID, will lose. They'll lose their best employees, because now employees are yearning for task orientation rather than time orientation.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And if COVID's taught us anything, the work from home phenomenon, look at the things that have been invented because of necessity. Necessity is the mother of all creation. Whereas, you couldn't even think of doing it before from home, but now it's like, oh, well, I guess we have to. And you're not turning that clock back now.
Exactly.
Plain
you
and
can't
simple.
get that time back. What's your third currency?
Yeah, and I'll let you know, I apologize. I have a hard stop in about 10 minutes. So I wanted to let you know that.
Good.
Third currency is the currency of fame. And, we've seen fame ruin people's lives. But yet, fame, other people are able to handle it really well. So what's the difference? And especially with our instant social media lifestyles today, everybody wants their TikTok to go viral. Everybody wants, all these things. They want that 15 minutes of fame. And so what I really realized is when it comes to fame, it's about who you are. And it's just like money. It's one thing to make money, another thing to keep it. Fame is the same thing. And so why does it ruin some people's lives and not others? And what really kind of hit home for me is I heard an interview a number of years ago with Jennifer Lopez. And the person interviewing her was saying, Jennifer, you're a powerhouse in business. You're a businesswoman. You're a singer. You're an actress. You're just amazing. And then in your personal life, you also keep that, seems to do really well for you as well. How do you keep the two like that? And her answer was, I'm J-Lo. I'm Jennifer. That's me. But when I'm in business, I go by J-Lo. That's my persona, but I'm still me. Yeah. But when I'm home, I'm just Jennifer. That's who I am with my family. And I went, wow, because when I'm traveling around the world, I have assistants that take care of everything. I'm in front of hundreds and thousands of people. And so when I'm doing trainings, I'm Robert Raymond Riopel. But when I'm home, I'm just Robert or Rob. And my wife and I have a running joke. I'll come home from doing a trip overseas and she'll go, honey, you're at home. No more assistance. Go take out the garbage. And I love it because it keeps me grounded. Like, could you imagine? We love camping. Can you imagine we're going camping with family and we're sitting around the fire and I'm like, hey, don't you know who I am? Go get me a beer. I'm Robert Raymond Riopel. My brothers would clue me in really quick that I'm not all that.
Family will always keep you humble on that note,
yes.
I think.
Yeah.
And I like how you've compartmentalized that, because it is hard in today's world. Like, I have a fitness business. I swore I'd never go back into it full time. I have trainers at work with me, but you're just going to get milk sometimes kills me. And I have my daughter hanging off me going, come on, mom. Come. I'm like, this is kind of eating into my time. But you feel like you have to give yourself everywhere. But I like that you've compartmentalized that to some degree and put boundaries out as well.
Well, and that's it. People are always going to push boundaries. So it's not only just about setting your boundaries, it's holding and maintaining to them unapologetically. Yes. Plain and simple. And Katie, I think, because what you're touching on, I'd love to somewhere down the road come back on and talk about the 4 phases of life, because it really helps people understand how to flow through life instead of resisting it. So I'd love to do that.
We're definitely going to do that, because we probably won't have time today to go into your 6 steps either of creating meaningful life. So I really want to touch on that. So we will do a podcast again down the track.
Perfect.
Because we are.
Well, let's do number 4 then.
Number 4.
Let's do number 4. And I will tell your listeners, because you were so gracious to have me on as a guest. You're talking about the 6 steps of my book. And what I would love to do is, as a gift from us for your listeners taking their precious time to listen, is my book, Success Left a Clue, as our gift to them. They can actually get the entire digital download copy as our gift.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you, because that will get me reading as well.
Perfect. And I'll give you, it's just going to my website, and you can put it in your show notes. It's just robertriopel.com. But there is a caveat with it. I didn't write this book for someone to read it, put it on the shelf, and make it shelf help. That's not why I wrote it. I wrote it as a workbook because step number 3 is take action. And on all my travels around the world, I noticed that's what the biggest difference between success and non-success is. So I wrote it as a workbook with action steps. And I even say in the book, did you do the last action? If not, stop reading right now, go back, do that action, and then continue reading. So for your listeners, I guarantee if they download it and do the actions while they read it, they'll take their lives to another level.
Thank you so much, because they will. And I'm with you. Execution is the step that most don't do. They read it. It's like you can't get better at push-ups by reading about them, right? You actually have
what? You can't?
Or
that's what I've been doing wrong.
That's right. Or watching an influencer do them on Instagram. You actually have to do them.
That's right. And so the 4th currency is the one I spend the most time with now, and it's something you mentioned right at the beginning of the interview, and that's a currency of experience. See, I'm all about experiencing things now. The good, the bad, the ugly. I want to experience life. I don't want to sit there and let life just pass me by. And so when it comes to the currency of experience, everything I design now, I design to have an experience around it. So as an example, I do masterminds, but I don't want to just have a mastermind. I'm going to do an experiential one. In January of 2020, before COVID lockdown, I had 8 of my students join me in Florida. We hopped on a private jet. We flew to the Bahamas for the day, had full police escort in 2 Rolls Royces through to a resort, masterminded all day long. And because of the experience, we connected deeper and people were more willing to be open and help each other out, right? So I put experiences around everything instead of just saying, here's what we're going to do. It's like, let's do something that you're going, wow, that was amazing. Because when it comes to the end of your days, I want you to be able to look back and go, what a life I had. All of it. The good, the bad, all of it. Instead of going, I was so busy, I don't even remember really what I did. Why is it I don't have a family? Why is it, these last few years have been stressful? So experience, that currency is probably the most important to me, currency out there. Because even if times are tough, if you're experiencing it, you're learning a lot. And that's going to allow you to live a great life.
That is so true, because experience to me, even serving people in any business that I'm in, I say I'm in the business of people. That's it. Whether I apply fitness, business mentoring, coaching, I'm in the business of people, number one, foremost. And everything I do, whether it's teaching a class, whether it's mentoring a student, whatever it is, it's about creating an experience, a positive experience for that individual.
Yes.
And on that note, I am coming to your next mastermind. The Bahamas with Rolls Royces and a private jet. You better include me in the next one.
Oh, well, my friend who owns the jet, I love what he says. His whole slogan is that luxury once experienced becomes a necessity.
Yes.
And the whole reason I decided to do is because I'd never flown on a private jet. I've flown all over the world, but I'd never flown on a private jet. And most people would go, okay, I'll go and pay to do it. I'm like, I'm a business. Why not earn money to go on fly on a private jet, right?
That's the business mind in you. You can't get away from that. There's an ROI on everything.
That's it. That's exactly it. And it was a great experience. Flying back, we were just coming over Florida to land, and all of a sudden Kennedy Space Center launched a rocket. So from the jet, we got to watch it from launch to atmosphere. And I love to say that I arranged all that, but I didn't.
Well, you could have said it's an omen. See, everything that we've just masterminded is actually going to come true. So,
well, and on a serious note, of the 8 students, we've all stayed amazing friends in the last 2 years, especially despite everything going on. And that day we created 8 7-figure businesses, one for every single one of them that they've been putting into practice and creating over the last 2 years.
I love that. What a story. Well, I'm going to sign you off there. Plug us. So your book is called
Success Left a Clue.
Success Left a Clue. Your website?
RobertRiopel.com. Just my name. Nice and easy.
Nice and easy. We will plug this on socials as well. And do you have social handles on that as well?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. Just put my name into Facebook. You'll find my fan page. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. And you'll find me. I love to give value, and I love to just be of service and help people.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Rob. We're going to do another interview, another podcast soon, because there's so much information that our listeners will find valuable when you have the time. And I thank you so much for giving up today. And I will be seeing you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Katie. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming on.